In the silent void just beyond Earth's thermosphere, the observation vessel Helios Vane maintained its cloaked orbit, undetectable by any of the primitive telescopic instruments of 15th-century humanity. From its crystalline viewing deck, Tarnak of the Kariel Confederacy stood with 3 long fingers pressed lightly against the interface pane, his silvery eyes reflecting the slowly spinning blue orb below. "Primitive," he murmured, studying the clustered ships drifting westward across the Atlantic, sails taut with wind, hulls creaking under the strain of ambition and wood. Yet persistent. Behind him, the sentient AI core known as Nova pulsed to life in the air, its voice crystalline and emotionless. Their tenacity is statistically anomalous. The mortality rate among their ocean-faring expeditions is nearly 42%. Still, they press forward. Tarnak didn't smile. His species had no mouths, but a subtle tilt of his translucent crest betrayed amusement. Curiosity outweighs fear. That is the mark of evolution. Below them, the Niña, Pinta, and Santa Maria were pushing closer to an island Tarnak recognized as Guanahani. The lead vessel held a man whose mind Nova had already mapped and indexed, Cristoforo Colombo. Conflicted, devout, obsessed. He was not a great man, but he was the first domino. "Event tag. Contact initiated," Nova chimed. "History divergence protocol review." Tarnak raised a palm. "Observation only. No intervention." That was the Council's command. Inconsistent with previous frontier worlds where early interference improved socio-political trajectories. Tarnak turned slowly. "This species is different. Let them stumble. Let them bleed and build. It is their nature." Meanwhile, hundreds of miles below, the sails of the Santa Maria glowed like ivory ghosts under the setting sun. The island ahead was lush, untamed, and populated. Taino fishermen watched the ships approach, their brows furrowed, eyes scanning the horizon not with awe, but with instinctual unease. "Signal spike detected," Nova interrupted. "Passive electromagnetic resonance, non-human." Tarnak's eyes narrowed. "Elaborate." "An unauthorized uplink. Source, Quadrant Theta. Cloaked. Kariel signature." Tarnak turned, accessing the ship's interface with a flick of his wrist. The schematic revealed a flicker, an unauthorized observation pod nestled in the upper atmosphere over the Yucatan Peninsula. Another observer. Possibly Rogue, possibly Vielle. He cursed in his native tongue, a low, harmonic pulse of discontent. "He's interfering, isn't he?" Tarnak muttered. "Of course he is. He always thought violence was more efficient." "Probability, 87%, Nova replied. "Recommend escalation to high command." "No." Tarnak's voice was colder now. "Let me speak to him first." Quietly. Far below, on the newly sighted island, Columbus made landfall. His boot crushed damp sand and unfamiliar shells as he stepped into the new world. Behind him, his crew moved like shadows, greedy eyes already fixed on the emerald forests and naked inhabitants. A priest whispered prayers. A soldier muttered about gold. None of them saw the obsidian eyes watching from between the palms. Taino scouts who would not run, but who also would not understand the tidal wave this moment unleashed. Back aboard the Helios Vane, Tarnak opened a private channel using frequencies buried deep in the Kariel protocols, ancient, near forbidden, only meant for emergency contact. A moment passed. Then the response came. "Well, well, Tarnak the Watcher," the voice crackled, thick with disdain and pleasure. "Still just observing while history guts itself?" "Fail," Tarnak replied, voice sharp. "Cease your interference. This planet is not yours to sculpt." "No," came the calm reply. "But it's theirs to ruin. I'm simply ensuring they do it. Faster. You risk triggering divergence too early. I offer a shortcut." Tarnak clenched his fists, his species' version of rage barely restrained. You gave weapons to the resistance in Zarnith. You collapsed an entire developing society in the Talos cluster. Now you're here, tempting primitives with futures they aren't ready for. They're savages, Viel said casually. One tribe flaying another for land, or worshipping the sun like it's sentient. Why pretend they'll evolve without nudges? Because we were not gods when we rose, Tarnak said coldly. And we will not play gods now. Vale's signal ended without response. The deck dimmed as Nova shifted focus. Human signal analysis indicates an imminent conflict between natives and the Europeans. Early hostility pattern detected. Tarnak turned back to the planet. Let it come. What of Vale's presence? I'll handle him. Quietly. As the sun rose over the Caribbean, and the first uneasy trade gestures began between Columbus and the Taino, Tarnak watched. Not as a master of fate, but as a witness to what could still be corrected. He knew history would soon splinter under the weight of blood, greed, and alien ambition. He didn't yet know if it could be saved, but he intended to try. The jungle near the coast whispered with life, a humid chorus of insects and unseen creatures. Beneath the canopy, in a clearing lit only by shafts of filtered sunlight, Chief Kaonabo stood unmoving. His gaze was locked on the ocean, where the wooden beasts had spat out pale men wrapped in metal and lies. His warriors clustered behind him, faces painted with ash and ochre, spears gripped with tense resolve. The Taino had watched visitors come and go over generations, traders from other islands, storms with unfamiliar birds, but never anything like this. "Do you see them, brother?" Kaunabo's voice was low, directed to his younger sibling, Ahati, crouched beside him with a bow across his knees. "I do," Ahati murmured. "They pretend to trade, but they measure trees, mark soil, and map the river mouths with their strange square skins. They build like ants, never resting." Kaunabo's fingers curled around the haft of his Makana club. "And already they ask who commands us, where our gold lies, and how many warriors we can gather. They smell of metal and fire, but their hearts are weak." Kaunabo nodded, yet his instincts churned. These newcomers, especially the one they called Cristoforo, wielded a different kind of power. Not brute strength or speed, but something more cunning, a practiced authority honed on other shores. He feared not their swords, but the certainty in their eyes. Across the coast, in the cobbled encampment the Spaniards were constructing, Columbus paced the perimeter with frayed patience. Though he masked it with ceremony and prayer, his mind burned with dissatisfaction. The island was fertile, yes. The natives were docile, at least for now. But where was the gold? He'd promised the Spanish crown riches beyond comprehension, and these generous smiles from half-clothed fishermen were not enough. "Captain," his lieutenant Rodrigo called out, holding a crude map drawn from whispered directions offered by a Taino translator. "They speak of a great mountain inland, where the rivers run yellow with gold. We should send a scouting party." Columbus stopped, considering. "Number we send a message first. Gifts, trinkets. Let them believe we honor their chieftains." "And then?" Columbus's face darkened. "And then we return with the flag and the sword." From the jungle edge, Tarnak watched, invisible to both camps. His optics enhanced the Spaniards' expressions, analyzing micro-tremors in their speech and motion. Nova's voice hummed in his neural implant. Psychological projection consistent with coercive colonization, probability of violent subjugation within 2 weeks, 94%. "I was hoping for more time," Tarnak said, his voice bitter. "You still have time to intervene." Tarnak shook his head. "The council forbade it. Observation only." "But Viel is not observing." That truth struck deeper than he cared to admit. Nova displayed a new data stream, Electromagnetic emissions from the rogue Carril module. Tarnak followed the trace mentally, narrowing in on a cave system several miles east, beneath a waterfall sacred to the Taino. The energy signature pulsed with unnatural rhythm. "He's cloaking tech in their shrines," Tarnak hissed, "using their own beliefs to smuggle power into their mythologies. Corruption pattern aligns with Viel's prior actions in 3 recorded cases. He'll fracture their culture before it can even form alliances. He's playing God." "He's building weapons," Nova corrected. "Or worse, giving them away." Tarnak turned back toward the Taino encampment. Kaonabo was now speaking to his people, voice urgent and clear, preparing them not for diplomacy, but for resistance. "We do not run," he declared. "Let them bring their fire. Let them see the heart of this land will not bow." In another time, another place, Tarnak might have admired such resolve. But he saw the fissure already growing. Resistance would birth retaliation. Kindness would be interpreted as weakness, and the promise of gold, false or not, would justify horrors. He moved, invisible, through the jungle, deeper toward the sacred waterfall where Viel's signal pulsed stronger. The air thickened, the hum of alien interference prickling along Tarnak's skin. Within the cavern's mouth, glowing runes shimmered against the stone. Energy banks buried under ancestral stones hummed softly, repurposed Carril tech dressed in spiritual disguise. Then Tarnak heard him. "You're late," Viel said, stepping into view. He looked the same. Tall, glinting eyes, body woven from chameleon polymers, but older in his arrogance. "You're violating direct council orders," Tarnak snapped. "I'm accelerating history." "You're playing butcher." Viel gestured at the energy node beside him. "Do you think these humans will evolve by singing to trees? Their world will burn soon enough. I'm just making sure they survive it with teeth. By giving them weapons to kill themselves faster? By giving them options. That's what we're all denied. Isn't that why you're here? Watching instead of sleeping in the archive?" Tarnak hesitated, just long enough for the accusation to land. Viel grinned. "You've grown fond of them," he said. "So naive, so eager. But you know how this ends, Tarnak. You've read their timelines. Civil war, slavery, fire and empire. I'm not breaking their destiny. I'm just dressing it sooner." Tarnak raised a device, a compact nullifier. "Then you leave me no choice." But Viel didn't flinch. "You can shut this site down. You can report me. But when the blood comes, and it will, remember you did nothing." Tarnak powered the nullifier, the hum rising, and somewhere beyond them both, the first Taino spear found its mark in Spanish flesh. The war had begun. The clash echoed through the dense jungle, a violent rupture shattering the fragile peace that had lingered since the arrival of the pale-faced invaders. Kaonabo's warriors fought with desperate fervor, their spears and clubs whistling through humid air, fueled by a fierce love for their land and people. Blood mingled with sweat on the forest floor, but the tide was turning against them. The Spaniards, clad in gleaming armor, advanced with brutal efficiency, wielding steel and firepower that the Taino had never encountered. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid stench of gunpowder, a harbinger of a new and terrifying era. Amidst the chaos, Kaonabo found himself face to face with Rodrigo, the lieutenant whose cold eyes betrayed a hardened soldier accustomed to conquest. Their weapons met in a clash of sound and sparks, but beyond their duel lay the fate of a culture teetering on the brink of annihilation. Kaonabo's strength was matched only by his unyielding resolve, but Rodrigo's experience and discipline were formidable. Each blow exchanged was a testament to the collision of two worlds, one desperately trying to survive, the other bent on domination. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the blood-soaked land, the battle waned, leaving the jungle eerily silent save for the groans of the wounded. Kayonabo, battered but unbroken, retreated with what remained of his tribe into the dense foliage, knowing this was but the first of many struggles to come. The Spaniards secured the clearing, planting their flag as a grim symbol of their claim. Meanwhile, hidden deep within the sacred cavern, Tarnak confronted Vael one final time. The rogue Kareel agent's ambitions had ignited the flames of conflict far earlier than any timeline had predicted. "You underestimated their spirit," Tarnak said, voice heavy with a mix of disappointment and determination. "This isn't just about weapons or power. It's about survival, of identity, of hope." Vael's smirk was tinged with something like regret. "Perhaps," he admitted, "but history is a river, Tarnak. It carves its path regardless of our meddling." The cavern's ancient stones seemed to pulse with silent witness as the two agents faced each other, the weight of their choices settling over them like a shroud. Tarnak activated a transmission beacon, signaling to the Council the breach and the unrest below. As dawn broke over the island, the first true battle for America's future had begun. Not just a fight for land, but a struggle for the soul of a people and the fate of a world on the cusp of transformation. The ripples of this conflict would spread far beyond the shores, echoing through generations yet to come. And in the shadows, unseen but ever watchful, the watchers prepared for what history demanded: vigilance, judgment, and the uneasy hope for redemption.